All right, so a lot of you guys said, why don't you just use one big turbo or two turbos? And we'll get into why we're sticking with 4. But we also want to let you know that we're working with a lot of our partners to get you guys discounts off of our website, thebossgarage.com. So check that out, 5, 10, 15% off, whatever. It adds up when you're spending $2,000 on a turbo, especially when you destroy them in race cars. So right now we have 2 more companies on board. We got Power Driven Diesel, we got discounts for that, and also Nick from Turbo Parts Canada. So we're gonna meet up with Nick and explain to you why it makes sense to rebuild some turbos or how to modify them to make them better. So here we go.
The RS2 is a very sought after car in Europe and all over the world. It makes a lot of jam.
Biggest concern for racers is fires, and we want to eliminate any fire hazard that we can underneath the hood. That will get bolted to this goodness. I recognize those.
Yeah.
Now I know our turbos didn't need a rebuild, but you thought you could upgrade them a little bit anyway?
They need a rebuild, a little one.
Now, the best part is, we went from a drain like this to one that goes like this. So when we started our Audi build for our project car challenge, we really didn't have anything available to us. We were broke, other than a couple scrapyards. And thanks to Tuesday, we got an all-wheel drive Audi. Thanks to V&R, we got these R2S turbos. These were off of a Max Force diesel, and we had no idea if they would work on a 4.8 gas or not. So talking to Aaron, I said, you know what, this 2-stage turbo is really cool. We should put that on the Audi. And Aaron said, you know what, we have a Quattro, you need 4 turbos. So we took all 4 turbos, a scrapyard 4.8, brought them to Andy at Jensen's in Pennsylvania, and see whether we could make any power or not. And we actually did. It was a really cool video. You gotta check it out. Will 4 turbos boost an LS? Now we have a few issues. Mainly, these turbos were designed for diesels, not for gas. And besides Andy, a couple more people told us that these turbos are kind of restrictive and we cannot get the air out of the engine. If we can't get the air out, we cannot get the air in. So, talking to BorgWarner at SEMA, who actually designed these turbos, he said a way to get around that is to machine the hot side on the small turbo, put a bigger turbine in it, and that will really wake up these turbos because the big turbos are already a good match for our 4.8. I put out a pile of questions asking, will these diesel turbos meant for like a 2.8 to like a 4-liter diesel work on essentially a 2.4 liter engine, 4.8, 1 bank and half. Nobody would tell me anything. So, in all my geniusness, I decided that a engine that spins around 3,300 RPM, that's meant for like a 3-liter diesel, if we took that down to 2.4 liter and doubled the RPM somewhere, it should work. Yeah. And it did, but we can make it better. We found Nick at Turbo Parts Canada, who says, I know those turbos, and I would love to take 90s technology and upgrade it with 2019 technology and make these things an absolute perfect fit for our 4.8. So, let's get into it.
We've got Phil over here testing some low impedance injectors. We make sure that they're all flowing the same, they're not leaking when they're sitting overnight. You get cold start issues and things like that. So for performance, mostly on the car side of things.
Okay.
OEM on the diesel side of things.
Okay.
So I'm working on some Golf R turbos, GTIs. Got your
I recognize those.
yeah, getting spooned up.
Okay, so we made it to Ottawa, where most of Canada's hot air comes from. Half from Parliament and half from Nick's shop. So you deal with turbos.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah. So what do you do?
We rebuild turbos and we upgrade them. We clean injectors, and that's pretty much it.
Okay.
turbos and injectors, gasoline injectors, diesel turbos, gasoline turbos, upgraded
Okay.
rebuilds, VGTs.
Now I know our turbos didn't need a rebuild, but you thought you could upgrade them a little bit anyway?
They need a rebuild, a little one. That's the high pressure one. That's the first one out of the engine. So you can see they ate a bit of scrap metal. Even with the damage, because the size of the housing and the size of the engine, you're still able to create boost.
Okay.
Because it's such a small housing for the size of engine.
Yeah.
But if it'd be like just a single turbo with this kind of damage, you'd notice it right away. Those RPMs doesn't take much, you know.
Yeah. I probably will still get some of this wrong, but this is the basic theory on these R2S turbos. Hot exhaust air comes out of the engine and feeds our main flange right here. The air goes inside the small turbo K16 and makes boost in the small little turbo. Because this turbo is small, it can only have so much air go through it before it physically cannot have any more air go through it. What happens then is this diaphragm opens up the wastegate.
Once you open this up, 25 psi, this one's gonna take over, making all the boost and all the airflow. The engine's spinning faster than this turbo can supply.
Right.
So now this one's taking over. It's got the bigger turbine wheel. So now all the airflow is coming out of here. Torque, horsepower.
So essentially, this turbo is freewheeling and all this air goes around and then the big turbo takes over. Our issue was that we physically cannot get enough air through the small turbo and the wastegate to allow the big turbo to actually do what it was capable of doing. Nick, not only can he port the wastegate to allow more air through the wastegate, he said that he can machine the turbine on the small turbo to accept a larger turbine and give us billet compressors on both turbos.
So the factory turbine wheel kind of looks like this one. It's not the same, but it's very similar. And what we're doing now is changing the arrow. So it's like a 12 blade, and we're switching to a 9 blade. And you can see the hub's a lot thinner in the middle. This hub's thicker. So we're reducing mass there by putting a more narrow hub, and less blades gives it more airflow. But when I did this on my car, I went from the 12 to 9 blade, same top end flow, but I gained 200 RPMs. That's cool. So which is huge. Shaved off like half a second per gear with 200 RPMs, right? Factory. 155.
150. So that's
what, 35 grams lighter. 35 grams. It adds up to about like 100 RPMs a quicker spool.
You're 200 down to 150 basically.
Yeah.
So you're 25%.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. So you can gain spool, or you can go bigger, and then from going bigger and less inertia and better design arrow, you'll have the same spool as before, but more top end. So either, better spool or more top end. You gotta pick your poison, right? And like we talked about, 540 torque at 2800, that's pretty good.
So I'm thinking we should go bigger turbine with less blades.
Yeah.
On all four.
Cool.
Less weight, clipped wheels, and goodness all the way around. The best thing is, he says these turbos are from the late 1990s, and we can take modern technology, incorporate it into these turbos, and make them actually a monster for our Audi. So let's go check it out.
This is the high speed. This is like the final assembly. It's a full cartridge. We're pumping oil through it, and it's an oil drain. Air is coming out through. We've got a big tank down here. So yeah, you're going for the sound. You're going for the high speed. It resonates. You got a speed sensor here. This is a sound machine, right? And you'll hear the whine. And we'll take corrections. This is really fine tuning. This is like the deluxe of the deluxe for the turbochargers. This one's already been balanced, but I just threw it on there to show you guys. So magnetized it. Put the speed sensor on there. I'm gonna put the cup on top. Eliminates any sounds. Leave that on there. Oil pump on. To get a little loud. So that's 125,000. This is fine tuning.
Right.
This is making it like
Okay.
the best of the best, right?
Okay.
And you get putting oil through it, so we test the seals.
Yep.
Test the audibles.
Okay,
it's
so
overall,
you put a nick in it, you do it again. If it gets better, you're on the right track.
Correct,
if it
correct.
does the opposite, you're on the wrong side, right?
and then over here, this tells us where the vibration angle is.
Oh, okay.
It tells us where to put the nick. And you see our air pressure,
Okay,
our oil
that-
pressure, oil temp.
All right, so we got a plan. One bigger turbine, and then a couple billet wheels. Are we doing billet wheels?
Yeah, we'll do the billet on the bigger ones.
Okay.
And it's your call if you want. We'll put some billets on the smaller one too.
Okay.
We're there, so it's up to you. We have to rebalance the whole assembly anyways.
Okay.
So you make the call on that. So we have to machine the housings. We have to order the custom wheels, and then we'll get to it.
You have no idea how excited I am to realize that all these things were like working half-ass,
Okay.
and we've got a legit car this year. So yeah.
Cool.
If you're ever at TMP, then give us a call because we're not that far away, and we'll give you a ride in the Audi.
Cool.
But I really want to try out Mossport too, so maybe that's like halfway in between us.
Let's do it.
So yeah, all right, thanks.
All
so
right,
much.
man.
Yeah.
Cool, can't wait.
Look forward to it. Okay, so we're getting our drains figured out for the turbos in our little boxes, and I could spend some money on some really nice furrows and stuff, but instead I went to Tuesdays and just grabbed some air conditioning line, because some of them have some really nice bends that I need to get around my boxes, and they have the furrows underneath here. So we won't tell Vince that he's welding old shitty air conditioning line, but he's a good welder, so he'll figure it out. Really hard to do with one hand. You get the point, right? It'll be fine. Perfect. That's turning out all right.
Welds are turning out good today.
It's a good thing I got brand new parts, right?
Hey, either you're in the mood or you're not in the mood. It's peculiar. Sometimes they go in and
Yeah, weird. Okay, so we've got our fittings welded in. They look fantastic. I was gonna weld baffles in, but I don't think I have to bother because the turbos sit right on the top, and basically even if I go around the corner, it's gonna hit the bank and not go very far. Now, the best part is we went from a drain like this, square, gross, yucky. We've got angles, the oil coming in. We've got a 90-degree coming out to one that goes like this. Much better. We still have enough room for a line to go nice and neat. We might do a 45 fitting on here just to keep the flow, and then the pump is going to be right here, right there, right there, except upside down, except completely flipped and upside down, and it's not gonna pull up. It's gonna be awesome. Here we go. I think the biggest issue that we had though is that I had my pump, if this is the bottom of the car, I had the pump right about here behind the seat of the inside the cab so I could listen to the pumps run. Obviously when you're racing, I found out that all those noises don't matter because your brain shuts off and you just want to drive. And I didn't even notice that the pumps weren't running a couple times. So those pumps being that far away probably had a big issue trying to pull the oil out of the catch can. So now we're putting the pumps right here, nice and short, and a direct line right into the oil cooler, and then the oil pan should fix all of our issues. Here we go. So this is the bracket that held the turbos up, and I thought, oh, I'll cut a big hole so that I can get at the exhaust flange better, at the bolts better. And I thought, oh, those holes look kind of cool, so then I went a little bit crazy with the drill and did some weight reduction. Cool, bro. I'm gonna put this in, mount the turbos. It's gonna be awesome. got to come back out again just because this cartridge has to turn slightly because this fitting is hitting this bolt. And that's the way it goes, but you get the idea of it. The turbo's in. We need to purge every one of the lines. So typically before we start a turbo, we'd put oil in them. We have this sensor. This is our oil feed line that comes right from our filter, and we don't tell the engine to fire until it sees oil pressure here, so the turbos never start up dry. But before we start anything, we need to start at the engine, run it, run some clean oil through everything, and then connect the line. So we'll connect the line, we'll unhook the line, we'll catch the oil that comes through it, and then we'll go to the turbos. We'll fill the drain cans and then we'll purge them, but we won't put that oil back into the engine again. Then we'll hook up our intake and not hook the charge pipe to the intake. Make sure that there's nothing in there. After we've cleaned everything, we'll make sure that the intake fits to the air filters, and then we'll go underneath and make sure that this catch can lines up with our pump slightly. There we go. So simple, right? Magic. Why is it taking so long to build the car, Rich? Why is it taking so long? Yeah, there we go. I know you guys have already wrote the comments. Why are the turbos in the back seat? They make much more sense under the hood. They do for most cars. This is an Audi. Audis suffer massively from understeer because the entire engine is in front of the front axle. When you turn your steering wheel, your car is like, yeah, I just want to keep going straight. So to counteract that, the LS is actually 60 pounds lighter than the original Audi V8. We have pretty close to a 50-50 weight ratio in an Audi, which is not very common at all. So we're aiming for better handling car around the corners by moving the radiator and the pumps, the water pump, everything is in the back. Justin Bell and Steve, who both drove the car, and Dave from Speed Academy said that the car handled amazingly well. Everybody kind of forgets that it's an Audi. So go back, delete that comment. Why didn't you put it under the hood? It's because of weight, and we want to build a 50-50 weight ratio. Also, it's a 4-door. What else are you gonna do with the rear seat? Here we go. So we've always had these air filters up here. We've added the side scoops. So basically, I went back to Tuesday's and grabbed the good old Vortec V6 air filter housing, because I figured 4.3 liter divided by 2 it should fit. So cut the back of the housing off. I'm gonna rivet that in place right here into the scoop, nice and tight, down low. I'm gonna make a bracket for the bottom, just cover up this little space, and then we can bolt these to it just as if it was factory. Like that, with or without the air filters. So make that bracket, rivet that in, and then we can connect our intake to our twin spoolie boys. Here we go. This old fuse panel, we're still gonna replace that and clean that up. We've got the nice MSD solid state relays that'll eliminate any wiring issues, and that was the worst of the wiring at the back here. Everything else is actually kind of neat. All right, so basically got everything starting to button up underneath here. I just have to run the wiring from behind the seats for the scavenge pumps to the scavenge pumps that are now down below. That's that wire right there. I'm starting to put some fluids in there, and that it's kind of nerve-wracking because that means I'm gonna have to start it up soon. But anyway, we're using Pennzoil Platinum 75 W90 for the transmission, and then we're using 75 140 for the rear diff. So the engine, I just went to town and grabbed some of the cheapest oil that I can just to run it through. We're just gonna run it a couple cycles, get it up to temperature, and then shut it off, and then change the oil, and then beat on it a little bit. We'll probably change the filter and beat on it a little bit, and then we're gonna switch to 10W60 full synthetic racing oil from Pennzoil. Pennzoil helped us out with that, so we really want to thank them. So now it's just a matter of poking that hose in. It's kind of a two-handed job. but I'm holding a camera. So we'll keep going until it comes out of that fill hole, and then that hose comes from the pump. That one goes to the pump, and then there's a sensor back there that once it hits a certain temperature, then it'll start cycling that oil and putting it through one of those coolers. So something's leaking. I'm gonna put the camera down before I make a big giant mess. Get my nice new hat all dirty. It's already dirty. Who am I kidding? We've got all the fluids in, no water. I'm just gonna fire it up. If it runs for 10 seconds, then that's good. We'll shut her off, and then keep carrying on. We've cleaned all the intake piping, all the cooler piping, transmission, diff are all full, engine oil is full. I'm going to take the return lines off from the coolers, going back into the engine, and we're just going to catch that oil in case there's any crap in the coolers or any of those new lines that we put in. And then that's a good way to clean those up. They're all clean as well, but in case there's something in there, I disconnected the intake and just pointed the intake off to the side. I will snap it a couple times. I did wipe everything down, but you never know. We don't want any of those pieces going into the engine, so it might not run great because the boost and the throttle and that'll be all off. But if it starts, it starts. We went from a 24 tooth to a 58 tooth. So I have to just program that into the computer, and the cam sensor is now from a 4X to a 1X. So I need to switch those two wires around. We won't have cam sync either. So yeah, really nervous, but here we go. We're LS 58 tooth. The time or the inductive delay, that might have to change to 4. I'll try with 1 first. Then cam sensor is single pulse, digital rising, and then it's distributor coil unplugged. So they still had this on waste fire with no cam sensor. So we were having an issue with the cam sensor, and so yeah, we were way off. We didn't have a cam sync. And the other stuff is just because we changed to a newer crank. And instead of the front cover cam sensor, we're back on the back of it because that's the cam that we got from Comp Cams. So we also boost. If we go into boost, we were on dual port pressure. That was fine. And solenoid source pressure. I think that's I think Stefan thought compressor meant like we have an actual compressor, but they mean compressor off the turbos. So we're actually fixed because we have an onboard air compressor that fixed value is at 40. And we also told it that we wanted 30 PSI of boost, which we don't really want because our safety is set at 25. So before the wastegates would open, it would cut timing and make it feel like a boot came off. So I think that's what that was. And it's off the dome PSI on the passenger side. So we need to do the controller setup. So we'll have to do a data log and get the wastegates to open. So we want them to open and close as quick as possible. And the P and the I and the D term is how quickly it opens, giving it the right amount of voltage, and then closing it again without giving it too much voltage, and then trying to play catch up and all that. But we'd have to do the data log to see that. And I have no idea yet how to do that. I still got a lot to learn. I'm just making this up. This is the last little bit that I'm also very, very tired. So another coffee. But I think that's about it. So now I'm going to unhook the oil pressure or the oil lines, and then push the button to start it, and it should fire. First time in 2 years. I still have to switch the cam wires over because the front to the back is backwards, and I haven't done that yet. So I still put the cam on waste fire. It's pretty nervous. No leaks. I'm gonna turn the scavenge pumps on anyway. Before we start. There's no oil coming out of there yet. I want to see some oil come out there. We've got a running car. It's not like we're rushing like Project Car Challenge where we get it running the week before we go. We haven't moved the car yet to see if our clutch is working. Yeah. Whew. All right. Everything's good, no weird noises. We got all our gears. I still got to play with the shifter a little better to get them a little dialed in, but I made a big mistake. Originally we had the high volume, regular oil pressure oil pump put in the engine, and we had too much oil going into the back, and our catch cans were overflowing. I fixed that by making better catch cans and moving the scavenge pumps from behind the seat to like 10 inches from the catch can. But I also told Scott when he built the engine to just put a normal oil pump in it. And we got a problem. Let me show you. That is the bare minimum for oil pressure. So you want at least 10 psi of oil pressure for every 1,000 RPM. Now, even the GTO, it's at like 50 psi when you first start it up, and then it'll settle down to about 30 psi at an idle. This is a brand new engine, and what we've done is added 4 more bearing journals on the turbo, plus sending all the oil to the back. So we need to pull that oil pump and put in a high volume oil pump. So, luckily, it's like a half-hour job. It's right here. I'm a 10 mil away from touching the oil pump. So, all we need to do is lift up on, or remove the engine mounts, tilt the engine up. I'm probably going to take the exhaust off, take the balancer off, take the front cover off, replace the oil pump, and we should be back in, it should only take about an hour. A little bit of a screw up. Scott gave me, when your engine builder makes this face at you, just listen to him and say, it's like, are you sure? Oh yeah, I'll pay for an oil pump and then pay for another one and another hour afterwards. So other than that, I don't think we have any leaks. So Vince did good welding, and the grassroot fittings, not a single one leaks. So, yeah, I'm in some water from the Mustang, but nothing to do with the car. Okay, so just took the oil pan bolts off, dropped the pan down a hair, replaced the O-ring, and lube that up. And then if you take the collar out of the middle, you can just pop that on. That slides nicely in, bolted in place, and then stick the collar in that drives the pump. Super easy. Wish all engines were this easy with no radiator or anything in the way. They just needed to drop the oil pan down to get this bolt off. If this was turned around and up high, I wouldn't have to drop the pan. So, but yeah, an extra step of 10, 15 bolts. Here we go. See if that made a difference. Sometimes you create a problem where there is no problem, and even though I don't think now that a stock oil pump is the proper setup for this car, the reason why we didn't have much oil pressure is because we were running off the sensor off the turbos. Because somebody started stealing sensors for the Mustang, because I did not have an oil pressure sensor for the Mustang, and when we fired that up, I wanted to make sure that we had good oil pressure on that car before we started doing the burnout and whatever else. So I took the oil pressure sensor from the engine and put it in the Mustang and block this one off. I think I put a stock one back in again, but that didn't work with the Holley. So the oil pressure back at the turbos is about 20 at idle. The oil pressure at the engine now with the higher volume oil pump is at 50, but it was probably at 30 with the stock oil pump. So one more issue done. 30 PSI at the turbos, 50 at the engine at idle, which obviously will go down when it gets hot. Good to go. All right, so we're at TMP, and I've only ever had it in second gear in the driveway. That's as fast as I can get it, kind of before I have to hit the brakes again on my property. Basically, we're just looking for leaks, listening for noises, and getting the clutch broke in a little bit. We'll take it on a couple laps, and then basically take it home, change the oil. We're still in our break-in oil. We still got a Fram filter on it. So we're gonna take it easy and just kind of have a lot of fun today. There we go. All the fluid stayed in it. It's getting hot without the cover on the back. I don't think we're getting that much air in the back. So what we're gonna do is take it back. We're gonna change the oil. I don't know if we're gonna throw the scoop on if we come back out again, but my shifter cup came out, so we're done for the day. A new problem, but not a big one. Pop it back in again, and I'll get Vince to just spot weld a little bit on the top, and then we're all good. I think I took a tie rod in and stuffed it in there because the other one was really sloppy. So I was shifting a bit too hard. I was downshifting way too early, so I was blowing some smoke out the back. I got told by a bunch of people, don't blow up Scott's engine, and we're not gonna do that today. So it was a good day. We're gonna drive it back in the trailer and then carry on. So here we go.